Okay, so let's first start with the demo. Auto format. Why do I auto format? I'm gonna show you in Neovim in a little while, but auto format is the one that turns this that you see on the screen. Let's look at this image. Notice all the different spaces that are here. Notice the indentation here and also the other spaces here at the bottom. So auto formatting turns this into this, what we see down here. Notice that the spaces were removed automatically and this was indented as well automatically. For this, I don't have to do anything. As you can see here, auto formatting happens when I switch from insert mode to normal mode. So what's going to happen in the background is that autosave is going to kick in after I make a change, 2 seconds after, and then autosave is going to trigger auto format. So just keep this in mind. This is the way that my configuration works. Every time that I autosave, the file is auto formatted, and that is triggered by autosave. As you can see here, this is configurable and can be disabled. If you want to, you can save but not format, and then format when you want. And the reason that I like auto formatting is because it keeps my markdown documents uniform. Also, if I'm editing, for example, a Lua file, auto formatting formats the file, and it helps me see if I have an error in the file and where. And also it keeps my indentation uniform across all the different files. Notice as well that I deal with a lot of YAML files at work. They are Kubernetes related, and auto formatting also helps me make less mistakes and keep all of the indentation correct in those files. We're gonna demo auto formatting in a little while. I just wanted to give you an idea of what auto formatting is, why I do it. Let's jump back to the prerequisites and other things you need for this to work. Notice that I'm in the prerequisites section here on the right-hand side. The first thing you're gonna need is Neovim, of course. If you wanna test all of the configuration that I'm about to show you right now, but you don't wanna modify your current config, you can get my Neovim setup. Notice that there's a video here. If you wanna go through that video and install it. If you don't wanna go through the video, but you just wanna set it up in less than 2 minutes, if we scroll down here a little bit more, you're gonna find the steps here. Clone it, and then run it. And if you want to, you can create an alias. Notice down here as well that you're gonna need some other requirements. For example, if you wanna view images in Neovim, I explained that in this video. And if you're completely new to Neovim, if you don't have it even installed yet, I also have a video for that, and it's the video shown right here. I teach you there how to install Neovim on macOS. After you install it, you can get my Neovim config, the one that I shown above, and follow along in this tutorial. If you like my content and you want to support me, I have a Ko-fi page. The link is going to be here. I set a goal, which is a computer that I want to buy to keep editing videos. So if you want to donate and support the cause, go to the page here. You can click on this image shown here. I also have a Discord server. Notice that I have a banner here, right? People usually have questions related to my videos. Something was not clear enough, or they need some sort of assistance. The Discord server is only for YouTube members, but I'm opening it to the public for at least 3 months. I'm only accepting a few people right now because I need to manage and moderate all that stuff. So if you want to join the Discord server, please reach out to me via any of my social media links. I'm going to show them below, and I will add you to the server. So again, remember that I'm opening this up. You don't need to pay anything. Just send me a message and I'll add you. You're going to notice that there's a few people that have joined so far. There's not a lot yet because the channel is not public yet, but some people has joined, right? So if you go through the different channels, you're going to notice that there are some conversations that have been started. We have different channels. I'm planning on adding more channels here. So if you have suggestions, join the server and just let us know there. A favor that I'm going to ask you is just read this. Read first section. Read the community guidelines that I left here. Read this. And for every conversation that you want to start, make sure that you start a thread. You're probably not used to threads, but you're going to see the benefit a few months later. Let me show you, for example, if I jump to this Neovim, you're going to notice that every message after a message is posted, a thread is started. Like this one, for example, right? And we have the name of the thread here. If we go into this thread, all of the conversation related to this message can be found here. So it just helps keep things organized. And if you need to search for something in the future, you just go to the thread and all of the information is going to be there. Remember, if you want to join Discord, Send me a message in any of my social media platforms and I'll add you there. Here are all the different links that I have for social media. So if you want me to add you to Discord, just reach out via any of these. The following links are going to be in the YouTube video description. Each one of the videos that I show in this video and in the blog post. And also you're going to see in the video description a link to this blog post. So in case that there are any commands that you want to copy and paste, you don't have to write them down. You just go to the blog post and you can copy them from there. The password manager that I personally use is 1Password. If you want to find out more on why that is, go and check this link here and I leave all the details there. I'm not sponsored by them or anything like that. This is just to keep my blog post ad-free. You can get a free 14-day trial. So go and check that out if you're interested. So notice that the first section here is auto formats, but we already covered this, okay? So we're gonna skip to the next section, as you already know why I do it. Okay, for this other section, I'm gonna jump to Neovim because I'm going to be demoing this in the video. So let me jump there real quick. Hyper-TL is gonna take me to my blog post, and we're in the auto format section, and here, auto format features and demo. Okay, so first, notice that I use the LazyVim distribution and I basically use the default config with a few tweaks. I want to auto format when the focus is lost or I leave a buffer. So to give you a better example, when the focus is lost, that happens, for example, if I'm switching from Skitty Notes to Ghosty. So let me jump to Skitty Notes on the right hand side. I'm just gonna press this key on my keyboard on the left hand side. That brings me here. And notice, for example, if I'm editing this file, right? So let's say that I go to a new line here below and I add multiple lines. I'm just gonna add here multiple lines and I wanna jump back to the previous file. I'm gonna do something right now. I'm gonna switch to normal mode and then I'm gonna switch back to Ghosty and you're gonna notice that the file is going to be automatically formatted and that is going to happen using the focus lost event. So let me switch to normal mode here, switch back to Ghosty. Notice that the file was formatted on the right hand side. I'm gonna show you how I do that in a minute, but it's pretty useful because sometimes you're editing a file in Neovim, you switch to another application, but auto formatting hasn't kicked in yet. So this event, focus lost, meaning that you switch to another app, is going to format the file before you switch to the other application. The same thing happens with the other events here below, buff, leave. So this is the same, but if switching between two different buffers. Let me switch to this other tmux session, which is my notes. And I'm just going to add a few lines here. I'm gonna do the exact same thing. I'm in insert mode, so auto-save doesn't kick in, auto-format doesn't kick in. But what I'm going to do right now is switch to normal mode and then go to the alternate buffer. So I'm switching right now, normal mode, and then alternate buffer. Notice the auto-saved message at the bottom of the screen. We don't know if the file was formatted or not. But if we go back to the file right now, you're going to notice that the lines that I added are gone. Why? Because of the buff leave event. It formatted the file before I left the buffer. Notice where I'm adding the lines in this inline code section. I'm just going to add them again. If I stay here in insert mode, nothing happens, right? But if I switch to normal mode, switch to the other buffer, come back, notice that the lines are gone, which means that my file was automatically formatted. If we switch back to the other tmux session, notice that if you want to see what formatter is applied to a file, you can run this command. So if I run that here, conform info, I accept that and I hit enter, you're going to notice that the formatter for this buffer is prettier. We're going to understand what that means in a little while, but for now, just keep that in mind. So we just demonstrated that here for markdown files is prettier. The same formatter is the one that I use for YAML files. Where can I see that? If I open this YAML file, just gonna type here gx, and that is going to bring up Neovim. You're gonna notice that in this file, if I type the same command, colon, and I type conform info, I accept this and I hit enter, you're gonna notice that the formatters for this buffer, prettier here shows as ready. If I wanna see the formatter that is being used in Lua files, is this one here. So if I open this file, for example, gx is gonna open it in Neovim again. And if we run here conform info, hit enter, you're gonna notice that the formatter for this buffer is Stylua. So just keep that in mind for now. That Stylua configuration comes from the LazyVim distribution. If I open the link that you see here, GX, that is going to open it in my browser. And you're going to notice here, almost at the bottom of the file, formatters by file type. Lua is set to use this formatter. Fish, this one, and SH files, this other one. So that's how you can specify the formatter for a different file type, at least in the LazyVim distribution. I'm going to show you where that is in a minute as well. So if we go back to the file, remember that we just saw above. Prettier is what formats my Markdown, YAML files, and many other different file types as well. In the LazyVim distribution, that is installed as a lazy extra. So if that's the distro that you use, the only thing that you need to do is come here, lazy extras, hit enter here, and look for Prettier. And here it is, formatting Prettier. Notice that it says here on the right-hand side, not managed by lazy extras, config in parentheses. So if I quit out of here, that is because I installed that extra through this file. Let me open this in Neovim real quick. And if I search for Prettier, here it is. This is the way that I added in this file. Why? Because if I add it here, all my different computers that use this Neovim config are gonna get this plugin, we could say, or this extra. So if we jump back to the other file, notice what the line below says. It basically installs Prettier through Mason. You can see that here. If we go to this section here, GX, it's gonna take me to the LazyVim website. And if I scroll down here a little bit, notice that I'm in the formatting Prettier section here. Mason.nvim is here, and ensure installed Prettier. So if you don't use the LazyVim distribution and you want to install Prettier, you can do it through Mason the way that is shown here. If you want to see the full spec, you just click here and it just shows you the entire plugin configuration. Okay, so now let's go back to the file. The next section that we're going to notice here is conform.nvim plugin. So just let me fold this, and if we go down here, this is the plugin that takes care of formatting. Let me open it, GX, that is going to bring it up in my browser. If you like this plugin, make sure to give it a star. It's a wonderful plugin. And just FYI, it's by the same creator of the oil plugin. If you scroll down here, you can find all of the plugin documentation, the different formatters, how to set it up, some auto commands. I use this to create an auto command, and way more information. Notice that this is the plugin used for formatting. You can configure it to use different formatters for different file types. Remember that we use Prettier for Markdown files and Stylua for Lua files. Notice that I used this plugin with the default configuration. I just made a small change and added an auto command. We're gonna see that in a minute. We already saw this, how the format happens when the focus is lost, and also on the buff leave event. Notice in the code below, I have a condition. Only format if the current mode is normal mode. Only format if auto format is enabled for the buffer or globally. Let me just delete this. So let's look at this in the code real quick. If I come down here, you're gonna notice this condition. So if auto formatting is enabled, this is going to work. And also I am in normal mode. So what do I mean by this? Let's give it a try. Let me jump back to my other Tmux session and let's see what happens when I'm not in normal mode. Okay, so I'm just going to here, scroll down a little bit and press enter a few times. And I'm going to switch to the alternate file. I can do that in insert mode. In my case, if I press Alt backspace. So notice that I switched to another buffer. Based on the condition that I showed you right now, it shouldn't have formatted. So let's go back to the file and see. You notice that it did not. Let me switch to the file again. Notice that it was not formatted. The same if I switch to another application. So if I jump to the browser and I'm in insert mode, notice that if I come back here, formatting did not happen. And that's what I want, and I'll let you know why as well. If I go to normal mode and switch to another application real fast, if I come back, you're gonna notice that it was formatted. So that demonstrates this condition, normal mode. Also, I only want to format if formatting is enabled globally or for the buffer. What do I mean by this? Notice that I left here above that you can run this command in LazyVim, lazy format info, to see the status of formatting. So let's jump back to the other session. And let's run here, lazy format info here. Just gonna accept this, hit enter. Notice at the bottom of the screen, global formatting and the buffer formatting, both of them are enabled. How do I disable them? In LazyVim, you can use these two key maps, leader UF globally and leader U capital F for the buffer. So let's go back here, leader UF, notice the bottom of the screen. It has been disabled. So now I'm just going to add a few lines here, okay? And I'm going to switch to normal mode and I'm going to switch to another application. Since formatting is disabled, the auto command should not kick in and my file should not be formatted. So let's do that right now. Normal mode into another application. If we go back to Neovim, it should not be formatted. So let's see, and it was not. And that's exactly what I want. Because if I disable formatting, I don't want this auto command to format my file. Let's just run the same command again, which was lazy format info. You're going to notice that it's still disabled. And I'm going to type the key map again, leader UF. Notice that it has been enabled. And let's see what happens when I switch to the other application right now and I come back. Notice that it was auto-formatted. Notice here that I added a small delay to the formatting so it does not interfere with Copilot chat or the search and replace plugin that I use, because I was getting some errors. So I added this delay here because otherwise it was not working the way that I expected it to work. Where can you find this configuration? It's in my .files. If I type here gx, it's going to take you to the .files. Remember that if you find useful information in my .files, just go to the main repo and give it a star. I'm just going to open the file in Neovim just so that you can quickly take a look. GX, and that is going to bring it up here in Neovide. Notice that the only thing that I have at the very top is the auto command that we were looking at. I don't have any other information there. And in the plugin configuration itself, I just have a formatter here for template files. That's it. But this is where you configure your formatters for the different files. You're going to notice that in this markdown documents, my lines are no longer than 80 characters. And why? Because this helps me with readability and consistency across all my different files. If I wouldn't do this, all of the different lines would be all over the place. So to read this file, I would have to go all the way through here, for example, and I don't want that. I just want it like this. This is the way that I like to have it. So that's why I enable this line wrapping at 80 characters. So there's a few things that you need to do to achieve this. First, you need to set this text width to 80. So if I open this file, gx, notice vim opt text width is set to 80 here. Again, this is in my .files. So what this does is when the text reaches the 80 character limit, it automatically switches you to the next line, to the line below. And this happens only when you are typing. If you open a file that has lines longer than 80 characters, this is not going to format them. This helps you only when you're typing. So that's why I left this information here. This will not auto-wrap existing lines in a document or long lines that you paste into a file. For that, we need to enable Prettier, which is the one shown in the section here below. So remember, Prettier is one of the formatters that Conform uses. If you want to use a different formatter for a different file, the same way that we do with Lua files, and you want to update the formatting rules for that other file, you need to update that other formatter. I'm going to show you how to configure Prettier so it gives you an idea. Notice this section here, prose wrap. This is what auto-formats existing lines over 80 characters, and also long lines that you paste that exceed the 80 character limit. And the place in which we configure this setting is the prettier rc.yaml file, which is the one shown down here, prettier rc.yaml. Remember that I showed you how to install this as a lazy extra already? If you don't know how to do it, go and check that part of the video. And remember that this is the file in which you configure the different formatting rules for Prettier. And this is not only for Markdown files, but for other file types, the ones that Prettier is formatting. So this is where you configure indenting with tabs instead of spaces if you want. You can also set the indentation level to 4 spaces instead of 2. You can do it only for a specific project. Let's say that at work, You use different formatting settings. You can do that with Prettier. I'm going to show you how. And this is also where you enable prose wrap. So the way that I manage this file is that I add it. Here is the path for the file to my home directory. Well, actually, I keep it in my dotfiles, and I create a symlink in my home directory that points to this file in my dotfiles. Let me open the file real quick so you can take a look, and you're gonna see the rules. I left some comments here at the very top of the file, and if we scroll down here a little bit, you're gonna notice the rules. Files, for markdown files, here are the options. Prose wrap, I set it to always, and the print width, I set it to 80, which is the default. If you want to have different settings for a different project or directory, notice that I'm specifying that here. This is the path, and notice that I'm using 4 spaces for indentation instead of 2. And I also increased here the print width to 100 instead of 80. So this is the file in which you configure the formatting settings for Prettier. Where is that file? Again, it's in my dots. I'm going to leave the link here. If I type gx, you're going to notice that it takes you to that file. Notice that I also left another link here. The configuration file will be resolved starting from the location of the file being formatted and searching up the file tree until a config file is found. Prettier intentionally does not support any kind of global configuration. This is to make sure that when a project is copied to another computer, Prettier's behavior stays the same. Otherwise, Prettier wouldn't be able to guarantee that everybody in a team gets the same consistent results. So just keep that in mind in case that you were wondering the way that I was as well, if there's a way to set up a global configuration for Prettier. Here's the answer, there's not, but it has worked quite well for me so far, so I don't worry about that. Sometimes you need to disable formatting for specific sections of a file so that Prettier does not auto-format it. So I'm going to show you what happens when I remove this line. I'm not sure why this is not working in this file, so I'm going to change to this other file. This is my markdown setup file. Let me go to my blog post real quick, and let me just find this file. I'm gonna go to home here. Here it is. And notice if we scroll down to the Discord server section, we have the banner here and it's formatted correctly. So let's go back to Neovim right now, and I'm going to delete this Prettier ignore line. You're gonna see what happens to the formatting that is shown down here. So just pay attention to this section. Let me delete this real quick. Let's just give it a moment. Formatting was applied. Notice that this was moved to the line above. And I cannot move it to the line below. Why? Because Prettier is gonna take over. So let's give it a try here. Even if I save, Prettier is going to move it back. What happens in the blog post, if I switch to the browser here, and if I refresh, notice the way that it looks. That's not what I want. So if I scroll back here and I undo the changes to add the lines above, Prettier is not going to kick in right now, and nothing is gonna happen. If I switch back to the blog post, and if I refresh this page here, notice that it's back to normal. Okay, so there's something else that I had forgotten already. After enabling all this formatting for markdown files, remember that the lines are going to be broken at 80 characters. So you're going to notice that when you copy text from a markdown file to another application like Slack, all of the lines are going to be broken at 80 characters. And your messages in Slack are going to look like shit. And I guess that you don't want that. I have a solution. I shared it in the Neovim subreddit. You're going to be able to find it here. If I type here GX, it's going to take me to the post that I made, but nobody understood what I was talking about. But if you follow my config, you're going to understand what I'm talking about. So this is the way to solve it. I have a video. You can watch it here, and I explain all of that in detail there. But let me quickly show you what I mean. If I grab this, right, I'm just going to select all this text, and I'm just going to copy it, and I will go to Slack real quick. Now here in Slack, I'm going to paste this message. So I'm just going to paste it. Notice what happened. Notice that the text was broken here at 80 characters, and it just doesn't look right. You don't want this when you're messaging in Slack because it will be formatted. So with the solution that I provide in that video, if I select this text again, I copy it with Y. Notice the message shown here at the bottom. And if I jump back to Slack and if I paste it here, notice that this time it was pasted correctly, which is what I want. Now let's move on to the next section, which is autosave. Why do I autosave? I come from Obsidian for taking notes, and I'm just used to autosave. I don't like to be typing the commands to save because I do it a lot throughout the day. It's a really controversial plugin. People seem to hate it a little bit, but once you go through this entire video, you're going to understand how useful it is. I have a Reddit post. I left it here. This is regarding the first video that I created 8 months ago regarding autosave. So if you want to find out more on what people think about autosave, go and check that out. One of the points that was brought up by one of the maintainers in that discussion was that if you're tracking your current file or your project in GitHub, why do you care about saving, right? And this makes sense for me because the final place where I save all my different stuff is GitHub. When I'm ready to commit a change, I just push it to GitHub, and that's my source of truth. If I mess something up, I just discard all the GitHub changes. And anyway, if you use the autosave plugin, you can undo and redo at will. This article that I'm writing right now is in GitHub. So if I mess something up and I need to revert, I just cancel the changes and that's it. So there's no need to save, to be honest. I don't find a reason to save. I do the same thing not only for my Markdown files, for my Lua files, basically any file that I work with. And remember that in my case, autosave triggers auto formats, but that can be modified and I'll let you know how. So notice what I have here. What happens if I mess up this blog post? Let's say that I mess up these 2 sections down here, right? There's a lot of information here. Notice on the left-hand side around 600 lines. So I'm just going to delete the whole thing. It auto-saved automatically, but if I type U, it's going to undo those changes and I have the information back at the bottom of the file, right? So if I just fold my headings again, you're gonna see that the headings are there again. Also, if I would like to do it through Git, I'm going to show you here if I just delete this entire sections again, and if I don't push these changes to GitHub, I don't have to worry about anything, right? So I just open lazy Git and I just discard these changes and I'm back to where I was. I don't have to worry about anything at all. So that covers the reasons why I autosave. It makes my life simpler and I just don't find a reason why not to do it. If you know a reason or if you come up with a reason, please let me know in the comments because I would be interested in hearing about it. I've been using autosave for 8 months, 9 months now, and I don't think I'm going back. Let me show you the things that can be modified in the autosave plugin. There are several different things, right? So first of all, the events that trigger an immediate save. This is similar to what we did with auto format. You remember the buff leave and the focus lost events? Same thing happens here, right? So if I'm in Skitty notes here, and if I make some changes here on the right-hand side, right? I'm going to go to normal mode, and then I'm going to switch back to Ghosty, and you're going to notice that the file is going to be saved. You will see that at the bottom right corner in Skitty notes. So I just go here, normal mode, and then Ghosty. You notice that it says auto-saved there. So those are the events that trigger an immediate save, but they can be modified. I'll let you know how. For example, here, one of the cases in which I modified this is in this case. I do not run an immediate save if I'm in insert mode, even if the focus lost event happens. I don't want it to save. I'm going to demo this in a little while, but for now, you just need to know that these immediate save events can be modified too. These are the events that trigger a save after a timer, which is known as the debounce delay. I have it set to 2 seconds, and I'm going to explain why. So if I exit insert mode, it's because I finished typing something. If I jump into normal mode, it's going to wait this debounce delay, and then it's going to save. If I perform another change between that time, it's not going to save. And this helps you in avoiding saving way too many times. So if I switch to this other repo, I'm going to show you right now. Let's go into insert mode in here, right? So notice that I'm not saving yet. If I type something here, typing text, notice that a save is not happening because I'm in insert mode. If I go out to normal mode right now and within 2 seconds, I go back into insert mode, notice that a save didn't happen. If I go to the line below, nothing happens, no autosave yet. I'm going to type here something else, test, nothing happens. If I go to normal mode and I go to insert mode again, the save hasn't happened. If I go to normal mode and I stay in normal mode for 2 seconds, you're going to notice that the save is going to happen, and it did at the bottom of the file. I'm just going to delete these changes here. Let's go back to the other file. Notice that I have some conditions here. I don't save when I'm in insert mode. We already saw that. But I also don't want to save when I'm in visual mode or when I'm using the Flash plugin. And why I don't want to save in these? Because I navigate into these two modes when I'm in the middle of editing text. For example, I usually jump into visual mode when I need to delete something or when I need to move it to a different place. The same thing happens with Flash. It's because I'm editing text. And I don't want an autosave to trigger in the middle of that, because the autosave is going to trigger an auto format, and the auto format is going to minimally disrupt my workflow. Because if I jump to this other file, notice what happens when auto format takes place. You're gonna notice like a small glitch. It's not a glitch, right? But you notice that it changes the file, right? So that's a little bit disruptive, and I don't want that when I'm in visual mode. Let me show you what I mean. Let's say that I'm here 2 lines below, right? And I'm just typing some text here, for example, text, testing, whatever, doesn't matter, right? And let me go 1 line below, and I'm just gonna type here text. And notice what's gonna happen. I'm gonna go to normal mode, visual mode, and I'm gonna select this text. Notice that it has not saved, right? What if I wanna move this text somewhere else? I'm going to delete it from here, and I'm going to paste it here. And I go to insert mode, and notice that it has not saved yet. And that's what I want. I don't want an auto format yet. What if I need to jump before the whatever word and I need to add something there? I'm gonna jump to normal mode. I'm gonna press S. That is going to put me in Flash, the Flash plugin. I'm just gonna type here whatever. Notice that no save yet. I'm just gonna type F here, and I'm going to go into insert mode real quick. And I'm just gonna type something here. Testing another word, whatever, right? I'm in insert mode, so no save yet. And let's say that I want to move this to a different place now, right? So I'm just going to go normal mode, and I'm just going to delete this from here. I'm going to paste it here. If I go to insert mode, it's not going to be deleted. Can go back to normal mode here, delete this line, and auto formatting will be applied soon, right? So it's saved and auto formatted. And it did it until I exited to normal mode, and I didn't do anything else basically. So that is what demos how I not save when in visual mode, in Flash mode, and in insert mode. And that is configured in the auto-save plugin. In this section, we're gonna look at the configuration in a little while, but notice that this is here. This is what takes care of it. So notice here, defer save, which means save after the delay. If I leave visual mode, or if I leave the Flash jump thingy, or if I leave insert mode, start a defer save. So that means start the timer, and after the timer, save. Notice that if a save was going to take place after the timer or after the delay, and one of these events here happen, the save is going to be canceled. And there's not much to think about here, because if you're in insert mode, it means that you're editing the file and you don't want to save, right? So that's why in the configuration section, under this cancel deferred save, we have insert mode. And I also added these custom events, which is visual enter and flash jump start, which is what I demoed a moment ago. So if I enter visual mode, do not save, or if I'm in flash mode, cancel the defer save. I use this condition because I don't want to save when I'm in insert mode and I switch to another application. So for example, if you're following a tutorial, right, a Udemy course, and you're taking notes, sometimes you just stay in insert mode and you switch to your tutorial. And when that happens, I don't want an autosave to happen, because if an autosave happens, an auto format will happen and it will mess everything up. So what do I mean? Let me switch to this other file, right? Just going to delete these 2 lines, and we're just going to imagine that I'm typing some text here, that I'm following a tutorial, for example, right? So do this, and I need to go back to the video. Let's say that it's an article, a blog post, right? So I just switch to my browser, and I'm following this, and then I come back to Neovim. Notice that it didn't auto-format anything. I'm still here, and my file hasn't changed, so I can continue typing. Let's say that I go back here, type, and then I go back again, and then I can here type, go back again, no issues at all. So that's pretty handy, in my case at least. Just going to delete this because this repo auto saves for me. Well, it auto pushes to GitHub for me. So this is what I just demoed right now, and this is done by this condition that I have here. If the mode is insert, return false. So notice that this is going to ignore the immediate save event because we lost the focus, we switched to another app, but this condition ignores that event. So that comes in pretty handy. There are some other configs here. Do not save when in Harpoon or if the file type is MySQL. And this is when I'm using that bot. Notice the condition here. If the buffer file type is Harpoon or MySQL, then return false. If I bring up Harpoon space H, notice that it just works. If you don't do this, something weird is gonna happen. Just gonna close out of here. And I'm going to switch to that bot just to show you real quick. Let me go to this other repo, space D in my case, and we're gonna notice that it opens on the right hand side. I'm going to connect to one of these databases, SAID queries, and this one, just gonna jump to the bottom of this file, and I'm just going to manually save it, and you're gonna notice that it executed the query. But what happens if I, for example, delete this line? An autosave is not going to happen, which means that the query is not going to be executed until I save the file, right? So if I save it, it does execute it. I'm going to undo this change. Notice that I undid the change. It didn't save, so the query was not executed. So if I save again, it's going to execute it until then. And that's what I want with this type of file. Notice this as well. I do not want to save within an active snippet. What do I mean by this? Let me jump to this file again. I'm just going to close out of that bot, letter D, close it out. Just gonna close this buffer. I'm just gonna close this little window down here. Just gonna fold my headings here. And I'm going to add a snippet here in this install doctalk section. I'm just going to go into insert mode. I'm going to type here table, for example, and I'm going to hit Control Y. And notice that this table was added. Since I'm in Lua snip, the save didn't happen. If you don't configure this, a save is going to happen and this is going to be messed up, right? So if I just type something here, test, if I type here again, tab, it's going to jump to the next section, ABC, tab, C, D, E. And if I hit tab, it's just going to jump to the other section, A, B, and C. If I hit tab again, notice that it jumped at the bottom of the table. Notice that it has not auto-saved yet, but if I go to normal mode, let's see what happens. It auto-formatted, so that's exactly what I wanted. Let me just add a few lines here at the bottom of the file. Gonna go to normal mode, auto-formatted, and it auto-saved this time. If you want to learn how I use LuaSnip, how I add snippets, how I configure the whole thing, I have this video, and I go over all of that in detail there. You're going to notice as well when I type words in a document, for example, if I type here test, you're going to notice that these suggestions show up. This is done by Blink. You can get suggestions from a dictionary, from the spell files that you have. That's what I do. LSP suggestions, path, a whole lot of different stuff. It's quite useful. If you want to learn more about Blink, how to set it up in detail, I also have a video and you'll be able to find it here. If you don't want to trigger an auto format when you save, you can set the option no auto command false. We're going to look at that in a minute. Also, the debounce delay, notice here that I have it set to 2 seconds at the moment. The default is 1 second, and I used it with a value of 750 milliseconds for quite a long time. But I had a problem with that because I auto format when I save. So my file was being formatted too often and it was causing a small disruption every time that it was formatted. So I just wanted to avoid all this and I increased it to 2000, as you can see here. That's the value that works for me. I tried 3 seconds, but it's too much. I also tried 5 seconds, way too much. 2 seconds is enough for me to move around, paste text in another place, go out of insert mode into visual mode or into flash, move stuff around, go to insert mode again without having an auto format in between. So play around with it. If you want to set it to a really low value, I did, I spent like 5 months that way or even longer, but it's gonna slow you down a little bit. So try it with 2 seconds, see how it works, and let me know down in the comments. What is the plugin that I use for autosave? Is the one shown here. I'm just gonna type here GX. It's gonna take you to this page. It only has 190 stars, but this plugin deserves way more because it works wonderfully. If you like the plugin, if you would recommend it, just make sure you give it a star. Pretty nice folks, the ones that manage the plugin. I have created a few issues in the past and they have been just great. They have helped me a lot, so just go and start the damn thing. There's a note here. Be really careful when choosing the plugin because this plugin, as you can see here, is a fork of another plugin. Many people still use this old plugin and this has not been updated and maintained in years. If you use this one instead, the one where my cursor is at right now, you're gonna have a lot of issues with undo, redo, and a lot of other stuff. So when you're about to install this plugin, make sure that you select the one that is shown here. This is the right one by Okuba. I left a big banner in my blog post, so you don't forget about this. Where is my configuration for this plugin? Again, and that is in my dotfiles. GX is gonna take me there. If I scroll down here, here's the entire config. Let's go back here and I'm just gonna show it to you in Neovim real quick. So here it is. Let's go to the very top of the file. You're gonna notice that I have some auto commands. These are some custom ones that I configured. This is just to print the message that you see every time a file is saved. Let's go down here. I do not want to save when in visual mode, so I created these custom auto commands. If you want to do the same, you need to add this configuration. This suggestion came from the plugin maintainers. If you want to see the issue, is here. Like I said, pretty nice people. You know, they just held my hand and guide me through the process. If you want to read more about it, go in this section here. So here's the auto command that detects when I enter visual mode or when I leave visual mode. The same thing for Flash, when I enter Flash or when I leave Flash as well. And then I use these auto commands here. Notice that these are custom events. User, the pattern is visual leave, and Flash jump end. So if you want to use the same settings that I do, make sure that you add this configuration. Otherwise, it is not going to work what you just saw in the video. Something else, if you don't want to execute auto commands when saving, you can set this to true. And that means that autosave is not going to trigger an auto format. If you set this no auto command to true, I do want it to trigger an auto format, so I just leave it as false. Here is also where you specify the debounce delay. So just make sure you play with that as well. Notice that I opened this file in Neovim, which is a Neovim GUI. It feels faster and snappier even compared to Ghosty. If you want to find out more about Neovim, I have a video in which I cover all of it in detail. Okay, so what do you think about these two plugins? Do you like them? Do you hate them? What do you think about them? I'd like to know down in the comments. I don't know what people think about autosave. Give them a try and let me know after a few days, a few months, what you think about them, if you're going to use them or not. Alright, so this is going to be quite long. Hope the video was useful. I'll see you in the next one.